This is the Mike LaPetri Show. Nassau County property taxes are way too high. That's why you need Reassessment and Evaluation Services, Inc., the #1 tax grievance provider that offers personal service and high success rates. Grieve your taxes now before the deadline on March 1st, 2024. Call today for more info, 516-742-5180, or apply online at reassessmytaxes.com. Regal Customs Brokers, the import community's ally. Whether you're a freight forwarder, importer, or individual, they clear your cargo through customs faster than any other broker around. At Regal Customs Broker, everyone gets the royal treatment. Go to regalbrokers.com for more information today. The champ is here. The champ is here. We got Anthony D'Esposito, United States Congressman for the 4th Congressional District. What's up, buddy?
What's up, Mike? How are you, buddy?
I am ecstatic. Yo, listen, I'm excited to start 2024 with you and kicking it to see your year in review. It's been a year since you've been on this show, and man, you have done a tremendous amount. It's been nonstop.
Much. Yeah, you know, it's hard to see when you watch from afar. You watch mainstream media, you look at social media. It does seem like Washington, D.C. is just one big circus, and not going to lie, throughout this year, there's been times where it has been a complete circus, but there's a lot of good work being done down there by a lot of good people.
Yeah, and that's the key is for me, from a 3,000 view perspective, you're looking at it like extremists on the left, extremists on the right. We have a rise in antisemitism that we've seen. And for me, it's exactly that. I'm looking at where are the moderates. Antisemitism is on the rise, and I know you have been nonstop fighting Biden economics, where the quality goes down, but the costs are going up.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that the moderates have been fighting hard for is trying to rein in this insane spending that Joe Biden is a part of. I mean, each and every day, our deficit continues to rise, and it is a direct reflection on this open checkbook that he has to just keep writing money, sending money places, and spending money with no checks and balances. I mean, the facts are that our children and grandchildren are going to be set with this burden. I mean, we just ended a year of 2023, prices 17.5% overall. You have food was up 20.3%. You have rent, people paying rent, 18.6%. Your electric bill, 24.3% throughout this country. I mean, the prices are up, and Biden tries to argue that inflation is coming down. Prices are up. It's costing more for everyday people that live in this country. But right here on Long Island and in New York, everything costs more money. It costs you more money to go to work. I mean, and now you have, it's not a federal thing, but on a state level, I mean, you have the state legislature. They're trying to implement laws to make everything cost more for Long Islanders and New Yorkers as well. It's nonstop. The Democrats and the progressives in this country are making everything cost more. That is without a doubt a fact.
Yeah, and that's the key. So, and that's what people are saying is now in response, because you have Hakeem Jeffries who's trying to go to the floor and say that the Republicans are do nothing. And my attitude is on the contrary, is you guys are the ones who are doing something. Can you highlight for the people from day one what you have been doing?
I mean, from Jump Street, once we got past the 15 rounds of electing a speaker, we got to work. I mean, we immediately passed, I believe it was in February, the Parents' Bill of Rights, giving parents the opportunity to see over and have reign over their children's education. Seems pretty basic, but unfortunately here in the United States of America, and most recently we've seen, again, and Congress has been highlighting the fact that our educational institutions are just completely following the lead of the far left and the progressives. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about anti-Semitism in a little bit, but I mean, that's the kind of things that are coming out of our educational institutions. And I think it's so important to have our parents give them their Bill of Rights so that they have the opportunity to really reign over their children's education. It seems crazy that we haven't have to do that, but it's one thing that we've done. You talk about the border. I mean, I hear it every day. I sit on the House Homeland Security Committee, and people often say, well, you keep talking about secure the border, you keep talking about Mayorkas, but what are Republicans actually doing?
Right.
I mean, like you mentioned, just at the end of last year, Hakeem Jeffries stands on the House floor with this big stupid poster next to him saying that Republicans are doing nothing. We passed H.R. 2 I mean, now it's over 200 days ago.
What's HR 2?
One of the most comprehensive border bills we've seen in the last 25 years. It's actually called the Secure the Border Act. It calls for hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure and technology improvements along not only our southern border, but our northern border, as well as our ports of entry throughout this country. It hires an additional 23,000 Customs and Border Patrol agents. It invests in asylum processing and those who process asylum seekers. It is the ability to begin, continue to build the wall so that we can actually secure our border. It's been sitting now on Chuck Schumer's desk for over 200 days. And I do not expect Democrats to agree with everything in that bill. But when you ask the question and you have guys like Hakeem Jeffries saying, well, the Republicans are doing nothing, we did our part.
Yeah.
We put a bill together.
Right.
The Homeland Security Committee sat down. We marked up that bill. We got it out of committee. We sent it to the floor. It was voted on. It passed. It's now been over 200 days sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk. And you would think that someone like Chuck Schumer, he's the Senate Majority Leader, he's not representing a state that is not dealing with a migrant issue. He comes from the state of New York, where Democrats, a Democratic city mayor, Mayor Adams, has said flat out, the migrant issue will destroy New York City. This is the city Chuck Schumer lives in, by the way, lives in Brooklyn. It's going to destroy the city. You have the Democratic governor of New York saying, basically, the inn is full. We don't have any more room for migrants.
Crazy.
And I was asked recently, by a left-wing reporter, and they said, well, what is the mayor is saying that the federal government should be doing more. Well, the federal government has been sending boatloads of money to cities and states to help with the migrant issue. What we should be focused on is that you can't, as a so-called leader or an elected official, just claim that you're a sanctuary city with no plans in place.
Right.
I mean, he literally went through his campaign. We want to welcome everyone to the land of milk and honey, touting the fact
come to New York City, baby.
City.
It's open.
Then they came, and there's nowhere to put them. There's no way to feed them. I mean, and I've said this before. My mom, it's not from a different country, but she came from the island of Puerto Rico to the United States of America in 1955. She was one years old. Came here. She's got 7 brothers and sisters. My grandparents came to New York, to Long Island, because they wanted a better way of life for their kids. They wanted that dream of quality education, of working hard, making their kids and their children and grandchildren's lives better. I'm all for the American dream. I'm all for people coming to this country and wanting the opportunities that we have, the democracy, the freedoms, the ability to go wherever you want and worship.
That is America.
That's America, and you should be able to come here. Come through the front door. This isn't an open door policy. Come through our points of entry. And that's what HR 2 is trying to secure and make sure that we could do it the right way. Saying that we're doing nothing, there is so much work being done by the House of Representatives. And listen, I'll be honest, it does sometimes seem like a circus. I mean, listen, whether you love Matt Gaetz or hate Matt Gaetz, that is another perfect example of putting a plan in motion and having no plan to actually
doing something,
up.
but then zero plan afterwards.
Let's vacate the chair of the Speaker of the House for the first time in the history of the United States of America. Okay, Matt. Now what? I don't know. We're going to spend 3 weeks trying to find a speaker, and yeah, it looked terrible. And I've been very clear. The Republicans didn't look good in that.
Yeah.
But you had moderates who were fighting the good fight. I mean, listen, I've been criticized by Democrats. I have Democrats calling me, a MAGA extremist. I have people on the far right telling me I'm a rhino. So
right there in the middle, baby.
I guess I'm in the middle. I've been, identified by some of the rating agencies in D.C. as the 5th most moderate member of the House of Representatives. I think that's reflective upon.
I think it's great.
What it is that we represent here on Long Island.
Well, that's your district. That's what I mean. That's who your district is.
It's a district that Joe Biden won in 2020 by 16.5 points. And during my tenure on the Hempstead Town Board, I've always said, the town of Hempstead is the largest town in the nation. You take my district as a whole, Democrats outnumber Republicans by about 80,000. You take Nassau County, Democrats outnumber Republicans by about 130,000. It's a pretty substantial number. So when I was a councilman, I ran in 2016. I was the only local guy on the ballot that year when President Trump ran for the first time. I was able, virtually an unknown. It was the first time running for office. I was able to win with 57% of the vote. 2017, again, I ran for my first 4-year term, won by pretty much the same number. In 2021, I ran for re-election in the town of Hempstead, again, in a place where Democrats outnumber Republicans, and I won with 70% of the vote.
Wow.
And the only way you do that is by making sure that people from other parties, that Democrats, independents, and others, they trust you, they believe in your ability to govern and work for them, and you make yourself accessible. That's what it's about. And I tell my staff all the time, I never, ever want someone to call my office and say, hey, listen, this is Mike Smith from 123 Main Street. I have a stop sign down. Oh, sorry, this is an office of a United States Congressman. We don't deal with that. We absolutely do deal with it.
Yep.
I want to be that one-stop shop for government. I want,
That's awesome.
and my staff does. We work as a team, and they make that phone call to the town of Hempstead or to the village that the person lives in and says, listen, I just got a call from this nice gentleman. He's having an issue with a stop sign. Can we get it squared away? Absolutely. And then we make sure we get that contact back to the guy and say, listen, we just spoke to the mayor of whatever village you're from. We just spoke to your councilwoman, your councilman. We just spoke to Supervisor Clavin. We're going to get it squared away. Or it's a county issue. No problem. We just spoke to your county legislator. I don't care what party they're from. And we want to get the job done. And that's what this is all about. And that's what people expect, at least from me. I've tried to create a brand, and people say it all the time. How do you get from place to place? You're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Well, you know what? It's important. If somebody is opening up a business, and I get criticized all the time, it's not about photo ops. It's about if someone is investing, a family is investing their life savings in a brick and mortar on Main Street and opening a business, you should be there to celebrate with them and thank them for investing in the community. Yesterday, I spent the morning at a couple of Boy Scout events. A young man, 14 years old, earning his Eagle Scout, the highest rank in Boy Scouts of America.
Which is so hard.
Why wouldn't I be there to celebrate? Why wouldn't I be there to give him a flag that we had flown over the United States Capitol building in his honor? Why wouldn't we be at a gold award for the Girl Scouts to celebrate their commitment to community? Why wouldn't we be at the local firehouse congratulating, chiefs on being elected? Why wouldn't we be supporting Kiwanis food drives? That's what we should be doing, right? We're supposed to have boots on the ground. We're supposed to make sure that the community understands that when I go to Washington, D.C., that I am their voice.
Yeah.
The only way I could be their voice
That's what people
is
trust you
hearing
to
them.
be.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so unique of what you do, because your district as a whole throughout the town of Hempstead is a really eclectic and diverse audience that you're communicating to. And it's interesting because as a congressman, you have those federal issues that we just talked about. Then at the same time, it's also you're hearing other issues from the state that are impacting that maybe you could have an impact on. I know congestion pricing has been something you've been hearing more and more from your district, specifically as the western portion of Nassau.
Absolutely.
You're close to the city. You have a lot of people that commute to the city. You have people that are driving in and out, that have businesses that are trucking in and out. And now they're going to be hit with the congestion pricing, which for those of you who don't know, are looking at potentially reaching $23 for every time that you enter into the city during these peak hours. Into that zone. Correct. Into that zone.
And in and out and back. So if you're a local guy from, Rockwell Center, Elmont, Limbrook, the Five Towns, West Hempstead, or anywhere in between, and you drive, let's say you do some sort of delivery or your trucking business, and you're back and forth into the city a few times a day, that's less money to bring home to your family to put food on the table, which, by the way, because of Joe Biden, food's more expensive than it's ever been.
Yeah.
So it's a continuous money grab from the left, and I've been very clear that I'm not going to stand for it.
You get dinged every time if someone went back in and out.
Yeah,
every single time.
Every single time. So, if you're a guy that delivers below, whatever street, and you are back and forth into the city multiple times a day, you're getting hit every time. Wow. It's like, and it's not fair.
And the biggest problem is what people don't I don't know if they don't care, perhaps it's just hubris, but all that money gets passed down to the consumer because that's the only way for the business to survive. Yeah. It has to get passed down to the consumer, and they have to pay that increased cost.
I mean, it's a perfect example of the left and Governor Hochul and the Democrats in the state. I mean, congestion pricing is one. Now we have the Clean Slate Act where they're putting, criminals ahead of law-abiding citizens. And then you have the increase in fares along the, for the MTA stuff. So they're turning around. They're saying that congestion pricing. They're trying to claim that it's going to put less cars on the street. We know that's insane.
No
they're
way.
trying to say, well, we want people to utilize mass transit. Well, they can't utilize mass transit because people are scared for their life because you guys put in place criminal justice reform and cashless bail, where now people can run around the city and do whatever it is they want with zero repercussions. So the whole thing doesn't make sense. They recently raised the rates on the subway and the buses, and they didn't even try to hide it. When we asked them, well, what's the reason as to why you're raising the rates? They could have said, we're paying our workers more. They deserve more. They're these are people that live in your community. We want to make sure they have fair wages. Get that? We're trying to deal with the cost of living and make sure that we are keeping those that work for us safe. Maybe they're putting in new safety regulations.
Right.
No, it was, we need to charge more because there are so many people that are evading paying a fare, that are jumping turnstiles,
That's a big
that
issue.
are being on a train and refuse to pay. Well, why don't we address that? Why don't we stop embracing this cashless bail nonsense and this criminal justice reform that literally has made communities less safe, that has enabled criminals to commit a crime? And let's remember, almost every crime that's committed, there's a victim. Every crime has a face. They're committing crimes, they're creating victims, and then they're going back out to commit another crime on more victims. It's insane. It's insane that we're allowing this. And what's even more insane, is that you have Kathy Hochul, who has basically doubled down on it and said, no, this is a good plan. We're in a good place. You have a guy like Alvin Bragg, who is just, listen, I spent a career in the NYPD. I've worked pretty much with every district attorney's office in the city of New York, including the special narcotics prosecutor. I have never experienced where a district attorney, regardless of where they fall on the political spectrum, where a district attorney is elected, and before he or she even takes office, sends a memo out to all his staff saying, yeah, that penal law that we follow, we're not going to follow that. We're going to follow these rules because I said so. You don't get elected district attorney to rewrite the penal code. You get elected district attorney to prosecute the crimes that are on the books. And the fact that we're allowing and embracing this is insanity.
So as a congressman now, how can you, in 2024, is there legislation that you can sign on to, sponsor, anything that can allow you to combat this, where if the state's going to do this, okay, the feds are going to respond accordingly?
So I think there's a couple things that we can do. First, I've been working right now, when I was a detective and a cop, there was a idea that was floated and utilized by the ATF and major police departments called trigger lock. And make a very long story short, they identified target areas where gun violence was through the roof, and they would set criteria and benchmarks. If someone is arrested with an illegal firearm, doesn't have to be loaded, doesn't even have to be operable. But if they're arrested with a firearm, they're in this geographic area because of the high violence of guns, and they have previously been convicted of some sort of felony. The case is then taken to the U.S. Attorney's Office instead of the Brooklyn or the Queens or the Bronx.
To the DA's office.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's something that has worked. And I think we need to, and I have where, listen, and this is again where I sit in sort of the moderate seat. I've had colleagues on the right saying we should be defunding all of these law enforcement agencies, the ATF, the FBI. And listen, I understand that without a doubt, some of our criminal justice system is being weaponized. There's no question. But it's like being a member of the NYPD. If you have a shitty police commissioner, you don't then turn around and defund the entire NYPD because you don't like the commissioner.
Yeah.
What we need to do is focus on these people who are at the top, remove them,
correct,
and then move forward, because the rank and file are, for the most part, following direction.
Right, this is your ground troops who are just doing the job.
I think we need to find ways where we can utilize federal law enforcement agencies to partner with local police departments, and obviously set the precedent that, if they meet these benchmarks, well, don't worry about the local DA. The U.S. Attorney's Office is going to handle it. And it worked with gun violence, and I want to see it utilized more. And that's one of the reasons why, a few months ago, I actually sent the letter saying that we need more ATF agents in places like on Long Island, where, there are times where, you have less than 10 ATF agents on all of Long Island. And sometimes, they're handling cases. They could be out of state, and now those resources are diminished. So that's one of the things that we're working on. Secondly, we're working on expanding programs like that for different crimes. It can't just be gun violence. We're working on a procedure right now with the U.S. Attorney and the Department of Justice so that we can start doing something similar to trigger lock with hate crimes.
Excellent.
If you're arrested for some sort of anti-Semitic, some sort of hate crime, and you meet certain benchmarks, let's say you've been arrested 10 times for, some sort of hate crime, why are we letting you go through the system again?
Right.
Let's charge this, and not only let's charge it federally, but let's send a message to the streets that, listen, if you get arrested for, spray painting swastikas all over a temple, you're probably not going to the local bookings. You're going down to the U.S. Attorney's office.
Yeah, because we've seen a 400% increase in anti-Semitism year over year.
And that number is not even the correct one. Because
Really?
One of the issues that we're facing, not only here in New York, but across the country, and I speak to law enforcement professionals every day. I mean, I speak to Commissioner Ryder on a regular basis, at least a few times a week. And one of the crimes that we're seeing the biggest, what we're seeing is that they're not reporting them. And so that number of 400% increase is actually higher.
Right, it's
People are
underreported.
thinking, listen, I don't want to be a victim again. I don't want to now be targeted.
Wow.
And because of the situation in so many places where the criminal justice system is not going to do the work that's going to make me feel that I'm safe again, why am I reporting it? So that 400% number is actually higher.
Wow, and that's something that it's very interesting because, and for those who don't recognize, state levels gives the sentencing in terms of how many years a criminal serves time is discretionary on the judge, but yet in the federal system there's mandatory minimums, right, which is huge because that's what you're talking about, sending a message to the streets is that they recognize, if I go and get prosecuted in the federal level, right, I have to serve
and
this many years.
Not only that, what's a little added bonus is that we've heard so much from, or at least they claim that one of the reasons as to why they put forth criminal justice reform and cashless bail was because the criminal justice proceedings were taking too long. Well, we're going to help with that because if it's charged federally, they move much more expeditious than they would if it's on the state level.
And that's a good way to say it. You guys are saying, you're too crowded? Great, we'll take some then. Put it into the federal system.
Yeah.
Happy to say. And that's great, too, because, as you know, so many times the left will target, specifically the extreme left. This is the extreme left that will target Republicans and you saying gun violence, gun violence, gun violence. And right here is your plan to show, hey.
I've had these, I've had people in my office who have come and they, you need to ban assault weapons.
Right.
Okay. First of all, let's sit down and let's have a conversation. Let's talk about guns.
Yep.
Most of the time, they don't even or can't explain what an assault weapon is. They actually think an AR stands for assault rifle.
Yeah, right.
So
Armalite for everybody
right,
knowing.
There's a lot of individuals who don't understand guns. They don't understand that right now the focus should be on targeting illegal firearms and getting them off the street. And I'm not one of those people. Listen, I own guns. I've trained on guns for years. I am not one of those people who thinks we should just go to the store and buy. There should be background checks. Mm-hmm. There should and some of the stuff that the state legislature has put in place, I think some of it's logical. Recently checking people's social media tells a lot about people, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who tell their whole life on social media, so I don't think it's a bad thing. But what we need to focus on is the illegal firearms. That's and you hear it often whenever there's God forbid some sort of what they say is a mass shooting. Ban weapons. You guys are failing the people. You have blood on your hands. Well, what about? And I've done this. I take out some pictures of. Oh, what are you showing me? Well, these are individuals that I've identified as when I was in law enforcement, bodies that I had to identify in the morgue. I block them out so they can't really. Well, why are you showing me that? Because you keep talking about these mass shootings that sometimes are not even mass. They're just multiple people shot. Mm-hmm. But you never once mentioned the 11 people that were shot across New York City last night, just 10 minutes from where we, not from where we are. Like, where in my district in 10 minutes, you could be in Queens. Yeah. Or in Brooklyn. There's no discussion of that. And then when you say that to them, they say, well, that's not, I'm not talking about those guns. But why? Those illegal firearms are killing people every day.
And that's the overwhelming majority of deaths.
And why? Does it not matter because they're in the inner city? Do we expect that?
Right.
Are you saying that we should expect less of a quality of life because they're minority neighborhoods? They don't like when I ask them that, but it's the truth.
That's the facts. Facts just
Facts
you
matter.
can't dispute. Right? It was Moynihan that always said, you're entitled to your own opinions, but not your own facts.
And I think that I have a unique situation. I serve with a lot of people who have, honorably served in the military. In some of, they're the real deal. But there are few members on the floor of the House right now that have, spent a career in the NYPD and focused on taking illegal guns off the street. I mean, that's what I did. And I've done, when they say you do nothing about taking guns off the street, I probably have done more than most.
Yeah.
And I want to continue doing that. I want to provide law enforcement with the resources. I recently, just a couple of months ago, I hosted in the Nassau County Police Academy, I hosted every law enforcement agency that I represent in my district. I had them come in and have a briefing from the ATF specific to firearms in order to share information, share intelligence, understand what the ATF offers to these departments. Now, Patty Ryder, County Executive Blakeman, they have a good rapport with these agencies because they're a bigger department.
Yep.
You take the smaller villages, take Hempstead, which no doubt they have violence there. You take any of the small villages, Limbrook, Garden City, Freeport. Floral Park, Rockville Center. These are departments that they don't have the extra resources to have someone assigned to be communicating constantly with the ATF. They do their best, so that's why I brought the ATF to them. And I said, guys, I want you to tell my police departments, tell these police departments what you offer and what you can do to help keep these communities safer. And they've all said, thank you so much. We never knew that this was available. We never knew that when we arrest somebody with a gun that we can reach out to an agent that's on Long Island who will come to the scene or come to the station house and help us, kind of track the life of the gun. That's important. That's how you fight crime. And that's what we should be doing. We should be focusing on illegal firearms and taking them off the street, and obviously holding those accountable who violate that. Going
forward now into 2024, it's gonna be mayhem this year.
Yeah,
we got this guy Alejandro Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security. He's been an abomination, and I know you've been going back and forth with this guy. You talked a lot about the border and what you've done, but how has it been? You hear it on the mass media talks about it, but what's really going down with this guy, with the Biden administration, and what needs to happen? Why is he an impediment? How is he standing in your way? Or what is it about this guy?
Secretary Mayorkas has now appeared in front of the House Homeland Security Committee probably 3 times. And he is a professional at dragging out answers and squirming out of delivering facts. And he has been a messenger for the Biden administration, and he is without a doubt derelict in his duties. And I stay every time I have the opportunity to talk to Secretary Mayorkas, I start off with one thing. I've taken oaths in my life. I took an oath to be a firefighter on Long Island. I took an oath to be a member of the NYPD. I took an oath to be a councilman. I took an oath to be a member of Congress, to protect, to serve, to protect this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's right. What we do.
Represent the people. That's right.
He took an oath, too, to be the Secretary of Homeland Security, and he's failing it. He should wake up every morning and think about, what am I going to do today to keep this beautiful, amazing, great country safe? And the last thing that he should be thinking about when he closes his eyes on his pillow that night should be, what have I done today? What can I do better? And I can't wait to wake up tomorrow to make this country a little safer. He's not doing that. He is not enforcing the policy, or he's not enforcing the laws that are in place. He's instead putting forth policies that him and Biden come up with, which has turned our country upside down. I mean, You speak to people. I did a little town hall yesterday in Limbrook, and someone said to me that immigration has been an issue for 50 years. I don't argue that. Our immigration system is broken, and part of the legislation that was in H.R. 2 was to try to help that policy. But you cannot argue that if you want to rewind back the last 25 years, you could talk about Obama, you could talk about Trump, you can talk about Clinton, Bush. Nobody has failed on border security more than Joe Biden and Secretary Mayorkas. Nobody. So perhaps we have had a immigration issue. Immigration and border security are two separate things. We want to revamp our immigration system. Let's do that. But right now, we need to focus on securing our border. That's what the focus is. And when people criticize us and saying, well, now it seems like every time there's a funding opportunity, you guys are tying the border to it. What's the problem with that?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to secure the border? I don't understand it. I don't understand the people on the far left who legitimately, when Joe Biden or any of his spokespeople say something, like they just believe it.
Well, I firmly believe it's all a plan for future voters, because there's going to be a point where you just allow more and more and more coming in. And you saw it in the city. New York City tried it with local elections where they wanted it for voting. And that's the mechanism, in my opinion, of where I'm looking at it. Because that's the only thing that makes sense.
And I hope and pray that that's all that comes from this. Because I will tell you, I speak to law enforcement professionals every day. And whether we're here on Long Island, or whether we're in New York City, or whether we're in surrounding communities, you head down south to Texas and Arizona, their biggest fear is that they're not saying if, they're saying when are we going to see another terrorist attack on American soil from somebody who has crossed our border illegally. We don't know where they are. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know who they're associating with. Why? Because right now we're at, as we enter now 2024, we're close, if not over, 1.7 people who have come across the southern border as gotaways. So we know they came across. We just don't know who they are, where they are, what they're doing. It's just sheer numbers. Some of them have to be on our known terror watch list. Yeah. And we don't know where they are, what they're doing. That is the fear of law enforcement. So, when we talk about, it's going to affect elections. It's going to affect, you take New York City, who's now going to face a 15% cut from all its agencies because they can't afford the migrant issue. But let's talk about national security. That's what we're focused on. And when people say, well, why are you tying funding? Why are you tying the border to all the funding? Why? Because it's probably the most important issue we're facing right now. Yeah, let's secure our border. You want to talk about sending money elsewhere. Listen, there are few that are bigger supporters of Israel. I represent probably the biggest Jewish population of any congressional district in this country. I've been to Israel 3 times this year. Wow. I have, represented the 5 towns community my entire time on the town board, and now as a congressman. I am without a doubt, I look back to my Chaminade days, and I don't think I ever would have thought that I was going to be man of the year at yeshivas and synagogues, but yet we're here. So there's nobody that wants to support more. There's nobody that wants to get funding to Israel. They are our greatest allies. I will continue to do that. But we have other places like Ukraine. I have voted in favor of sending money to Ukraine, and I think we should support our allies, and we should be concerned about Russia and Putin, and those should all be concerns. But we should also be concerned about our border.
Well, don't forget the homeland.
Our border and
that's
our
right.
homeland. And that's why I don't understand where you get, whether it's Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer, they sit there while the Republicans are doing nothing. Guys, we sent a bill over to you to secure our border. I don't want you to agree with everything. But let's open up communication. Let's negotiate. Let's get something on paper. Let's vote on it, and let's secure our homeland. Who doesn't want that? And
I remember, just for the viewers and listeners to understand, who's coming? Everybody's coming through that border. It's not just the South America, Central America. It's also China. It's also Syria. It's also Lebanon. It's also Yemen.
The last number was over 50 different countries are represented
exactly
across the southern border.
That's the key. That's what people don't realize. We saw from 2016 to 2020, throughout the entire time, was approximately 20 individuals were caught on the known or suspected watch list, terror watch list. Now that number in 1 year was 5x. You're seeing in 1 year during the 2020 and now 2024, throughout this time, you're seeing serious increases of threats. And people forget 9/11, all those terrorists came in not only through the south, but also the northern border. The northern border they came in, and by having the open borders, allows them to get in free, Nobody looks at it, nobody watches, and then what happens is they disappear.
And in the process destroys the quality of life for Americans. And that's another important. I mean, take New York City where...
Yep. New York City is a great laboratory example.
They're not going to put the next 2 NYPD academy classes in because they're using the money to pay for migrants.
There you go.
I had the UFA president, Andy Ansbro. He appeared in front of the House Homeland Security Committee just a month ago. He, a sheriff from upstate New York, we had somebody from the border, and we had County Executive Blakeman in front of the subcommittee on Homeland Security that I chair, Emergency Management and Technology, because I wanted to get a good, concise understanding of, we talk about the many things that the migrant issue is creating hurdles for, but let's talk about what it's doing to public safety. Let's talk about what it's doing to emergency management, to the fire service, to EMS, to police departments, to sheriffs, to prosecutors. Let's talk about that. And we had, and I will say, it's a subcommittee of probably 10 people. We had another 10 members of Congress wave on to the committee because they were so interested in how this affected their communities and their districts.
Brilliant.
So it tells the story. I mean, the UFA right now and the FDNY, they are now changing their minimum manning at some of their busiest firehouses because they don't have the people because they can't afford it. You have the NYPD who now is going to put 2 NYPD academy classes on the back burner. I mean, that's thousands of cops. And at the same time, there's a line out the door of the pension section because everybody wants to leave.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you advocating for redistribution of income, here it is. Exactly. You want the redistribution? This is what happens, is that you lose your safety, you lose your security, you lose your quality of life. But that's what you wanted to vote for, so that's what you get on Long Island for Congressman D'Esposito's district. He's going to be advocating for making sure we have safe, secure communities, for a low cost of living, high quality of life. And I think ultimately it's been a real privilege to hear everything you've been doing. I wish you this wonderful upcoming year, great success in November election. But you have been marvelous, and I'm looking forward to seeing you just continue forward. Keep powering through being a representative of the people, because that's exactly what you do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Thanks for coming on.